And here's
Bye-bye.
a closer look at what the balloon looked like. It's a helium-filled balloon with solar panels, cameras, sensors, communication devices. Take a look at the map of the balloon's path. We were just discussing this. The balloon is said to be flying at about 60,000 feet, well above the range of civilian air traffic. And you can see some of the military installations near the balloon's path. Bloomberg reporting that the White House knew about the spy balloon when it entered U.S. airspace all the way back on January 28th. Remember, Biden said he wanted to shoot it down 2 days ago, but January 28th, well before that. They kept it quiet, allegedly because of Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State. He had a scheduled trip to China, which has since been postponed. Here is White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre when asked about it by reporters.
When did the White House learn about the balloon, and why was there a delay in disclosing that the balloon was out there? Secondly, did the president make the decision to cancel the Secretary of State's trip? And what does this episode say about U.S.-China relations at this time?
Okay, that's a lot of questions right there. The president was briefed on this on Tuesday. He has been continued to receive regular briefings and updates from the National Security Team.
Now, a local Billings, Montana paper actually blew their cover when they published a picture and then a video of the balloon. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer joins us now. Also joined again by Fred Fleitz, the former chief of staff of the National Security Council under President Trump. He's also a Newsmax contributor. Colonel Shaffer, we'll start with you. It looks like the administration wanted to hide this from the American people. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Oh, they did. And what's being missed here, and I think Fred will agree with me on this, is the fact that we have the most expensive intelligence collection system in the world, but we didn't know this was coming. What Dr. Savage just showed is the intelligence we give away. Logan, what the sad truth is, we should have known that the Chinese were planning something like this. We should have had people inside of Beijing actually giving us details so we could have been prepared. So it shouldn't have been this thing showing up in the Aleutian Islands and we're surprised. It should be they're showing up in the Aleutian Islands with F-22s ready to take it down right then. So again, let me be very clear on this. This was an intelligence surprise, much like, but very much benign compared to Pearl Harbor or 9/11. So I don't know the point of spending billions. And if I were President Biden, if I was seriously trying to get to the bottom of this, I'd have CIA Director Burns and Lloyd Austin in my office now telling me, trying to explain why you guys didn't have spies in China telling us this was coming. So yes, it was strategically bad that we didn't know, but it's horrible that Biden, the Babylon Bee predicted this. They actually said 2 days ago that President Biden would shoot this down after the balloon had finished its mission. Sure enough, that's when we shot it down.
And a couple of things that aren't being discussed as much as I thought they would be at this point in time. You had the Pentagon saying to reporters, oh, if you want to know where the balloon is, just look up in the sky. That was quite the answer. Fred, what do you make of the Biden administration's response to this? And also, do you think that they're going to be able to figure out what was aboard that balloon and try to get some of this equipment that could be part of the debris?
Sure, but I want to add something to what the brilliant Michael Savage said. We do give away an awful lot of intelligence. We have an annual worldwide threat briefing when our intelligence agencies tell the world everything it knows in an unclassified session. I'll tell you, that's a really valuable session for hostile powers. I don't really know where the Biden administration is going here. This should have been stopped before it entered U.S. territory. It looks like we're going to be able to recover the remains of this of the spy equipment because it landed in shallow water in a 5-mile area off the coast. But I'd like to see how the Biden administration is going to respond to this. President Biden has to recognize that China is an adversary, not a competitor. It's time to stop calling China a competitor, treat it like an adversary. I think I would close a consulate. I think I would restrict the movement of Chinese diplomats in the U.S. and threaten to ratchet up pressure more if this happens again.
And Colonel Shaffer, what would your response be towards the Chinese?
So I would add to what Fred said by increasing the number of military exercises and demonstrating military commitment to doing something to stymie their goals. And what's ironic here, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley, I was on the transition team. Mark was my contact. He was the chief of staff of the Army. Logan, he lectured me for half an hour about what a threat he knew China was. He actually talked about reading the doctrine, having spoken to Chinese generals, and said that they, the Chinese, have the intention of challenging our interest in the Pacific. So I am mortified, as Fred just outlined, that we give away so much intelligence, and now we have this clear provocation. This was a provocation. The Chinese have any number of methods to get the intel that this balloon could have been getting for them. But we've got to show that we have the resolve and military capacity to stop whatever they're trying to do, and that includes Taiwan. So we've got to be very clear. You dare not show weakness, Logan, to an adversary. And I agree with Fred. They're not a competitor. They are now an adversary engaged in fifth-generation war. And by the way, just a quick note, fentanyl is a weapon of mass destruction they are now using to weaken the internal social order of the United States. That, to me, is by itself an act of war that we're not addressing adequately.
And Fred, former President Trump, he entered the Chinese spy balloon debate, slamming President Biden for shutting down the initiative to hunt down Chinese spies in the U.S., something that you were alluding to. Watch.
As president, I established a special initiative at the Department of Justice tasked with the sole mission of targeting Chinese espionage in the United States. Joe Biden terminated that program right away, suggesting that it was somehow racist.
You don't hear anything like this coming from the current administration, Fred, and you also don't hear that this conflict in Ukraine with Russia, they go on the offensive with everything they say about Putin, but they're not acknowledging that North Korea, China, and Iran are also helping the Russians right now. So your thoughts on how the Biden administration is dealing with not only China, but those other three countries that do not have our best interests in mind?
Well, I think we have to be clear that this act of weakness, this act of incompetence is going to embolden our adversaries even more. We saw this after the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. What happened? North Korea started testing missiles. It tested over 75 missiles last year, the most ever. This began in the fall of 2021, just after the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal. We've seen similar provocations by the Chinese. And when did Russia invade Ukraine? In early 2022. And it also was influenced by the incompetent withdrawal from Afghanistan. This incident will embolden our enemies even more. I think we're going to be facing a dangerous 2 years until this president leaves office, hopefully in January 2025.
Yeah, shaping up to be another bumpy year around the globe here in 2023. Colonel Shaffer, Fred Fleitz, thank you for your time and your insight tonight.
Thanks,
Good to
Logan.
be here.